This story happened to a guy named Trevor back in 2019. He was 17 at the time and lived with his parents in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado. The kind of place where nothing ever really happens until it does. Trevor's parents were heading out of town for the weekend. Nothing unusual, just a quick getaway. They told Trevor to lock the doors, keep his phone on, and text them if anything seemed off. He was used to being home alone and didn't think much of it. That night, around 2 a.m., Trevor was in bed scrolling through his phone when he heard it. A faint scratching sound coming from the ceiling above his bedroom. He paused, held his breath, listened. It was soft, but definitely there. He brushed it off as mice or maybe squirrels in the attic, typical old house stuff, and went to sleep. The next morning, he went about his day, but when he walked past the hallway leading to the attic crawl space, he noticed a weird smell, a mix of body odor, something greasy, and rot. He figured something had died up there. Still gross, but not alarming yet. But that night, the scratching came back. Only this time, it wasn't just scratching, it was shifting, like someone moving, crawling. Trevor got up, grabbed a flashlight, and walked to the crawl space entrance. He pulled the string light. Nothing unusual, just the dusty old attic. But then, he saw something. At the far end, in the shadows, was a fast food bag, still full, and next to it, a rolled-up sleeping bag. Trevor's heart dropped. He turned and ran back to his room, locked the door, and called the police. When they arrived, they searched the attic and found more disturbing things. Empty water bottles, a moldy hoodie, a flashlight with dead batteries, and most chilling of all, a pair of worn-out boots, caked in dried mud, sitting neatly by the edge of the opening. Whoever had been living up there had been doing so for days, maybe longer. The police said the man likely entered through an unlocked second-story window. He had a record: trespassing, breaking and entering, stalking. He'd been watching the family, waiting for them to leave, but didn't expect Trevor to stay behind. Trevor moved out the following year. He says to this day, if he hears a noise in the walls or above him, he doesn't assume it's rats. He assumes it's a person. This story was submitted by a woman named Claire, a new mom living in a small town just outside of Milwaukee. It happened in 2016, just a few weeks after she and her husband brought home their newborn daughter, Ellie. They were first-time parents, exhausted, anxious, and like most new moms and dads, obsessed with keeping an eye on their baby at all times. That's why Claire bought a top-of-the-line baby monitor, HD camera, two-way audio, night vision, the works. But the monitor picked up more than just crying. It started on a Wednesday. Claire had just put Ellie down for the night. The house was quiet. Her husband was out of town on a business trip, and she finally had a moment to sit and relax. She settled on the couch with a blanket and turned on the monitor screen. Ellie was fast asleep, gently breathing, her tiny hands curled up by her face. And then the monitor crackled. At first, Claire thought it was just interference, but then she heard it. A voice, a man's voice, very soft, very calm, whispering, "Don't cry, Daddy's here." Claire sat frozen. Her husband wasn't home. No one was supposed to be in that room. She leapt off the couch, ran to the nursery, and flung open the door. Ellie was still asleep, peaceful, unbothered. The room was exactly how she left it. No open windows, no signs of entry, nothing. She told herself it was interference. Maybe the monitor was picking up a neighbor's signal. It wasn't common, but it had happened before with older devices. Still, that voice felt too close, too clear, too intentional. It happened again, this time at 3:12 a.m. The same soft whispering coming through the monitor. Claire listened closely, heart pounding. The voice was repeating something over and over. "You're such a pretty baby, such a quiet little thing." She didn't run to the nursery this time. She grabbed her phone and called the police. When officers arrived, they didn't find anyone in the house. No signs of forced entry, nothing on the cameras except Claire walking through the halls. But one of the officers asked to look at the baby monitor. He stared at it for a while, then asked if Claire had changed her Wi-Fi password recently. She said no. That's when he told her it had likely been hacked. Baby monitors with remote viewing features are connected to the internet, and sometimes people, sick people, gain access to them. They watch, they listen, and sometimes they talk back. Claire threw the monitor away that same night, bought a new one with no Wi-Fi features at all, old school, audio only. She never heard the voice again, but to this day, she wonders, how long had someone been watching her daughter? And worse, were they planning to do more than just whisper? This story was posted by a Reddit user who went by the name Shadow_Stalker. It happened when he was 15 years old, living in a quiet rural town in Washington state. His parents were invited to a wedding 2 towns over, and since it was adults only and would run late, they decided to let him stay home alone. He had pizza, soda, movies lined up. It was supposed to be a chill night. But by midnight, that night would turn into something he still refuses to talk about without shaking. It was around 11:45 p.m. He was sitting on the couch watching an old horror movie when he heard it, a knock at the front door. He paused the movie, confused. Who would be knocking at this hour? He looked out the peephole. No one. He opened the door just a crack. Still no one there. Nothing on the porch. The street was empty. Weird, but not terrifying. Maybe just a prank. He closed the door, locked it, and went back to the couch. 1 minute passes. Then, 3 more knocks. Louder this time. This time, it came from the side door. Now he was nervous. That door wasn't visible from the street. You'd have to walk around the house, past a fence, and through gravel. He would have heard it. He crept toward the side door and stood perfectly still, holding his breath. Knock. Knock. He texted his parents. No response. He texted his neighbor across the street. Nothing. Then, tapping at the kitchen window. Not knocking. Tapping. Fast. Light. Deliberate. He grabbed a kitchen knife, not because he thought it would help, but because he felt like he had to do something. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Long silence, then knock at the front again. That's when it clicked. It wasn't just someone at the door, it was someone walking around the house, knocking on every single entry point, in a pattern. Front door, side door, kitchen window, back patio, garage. And then it started all over again. For over 2 hours this went on. He never saw the person, never caught a glimpse of them in any window. But the knocking always came, like a loop, as if the person was doing laps around the house, waiting for him to open the door. Finally, he called 911. By the time the cops arrived, the knocking had stopped. The officer checked the property, found no one. But he did find something. Underneath the welcome mat was a kitchen knife. It didn't belong to the house. The officer asked if there were any missing from the kitchen drawer. The kid checked. One was gone. To this day, he doesn't know who was out there or why they never tried to break in. Maybe they were testing him, or maybe they were waiting for one thing, for him to open the door. This story was sent in by a man named Mark B., who said it's the one night he's never been able to explain, and likely never will. Mark lived alone in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside of Boston. He worked from home, kept to himself, and spent most nights unwinding in front of the TV, watching old VHS tapes or streaming horror movies. He didn't believe in the paranormal, didn't scare easy. But one night, in April of 2022, his screen showed him something that wasn't in the movie. It was around 2:30 in the morning. Mark was watching an old black and white horror film on a streaming site. The movie had long stretches of silence between dialogue, just static, shadows, and flickering lights. He was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, the room totally dark except for the screen in front of him. And then it happened. The screen went black. Just for a second. A glitch. But in that split second of darkness, he saw something behind him, in the reflection of the TV. A face. Pale. Round. Eyes wide open. No emotion. No movement, just watching. Mark spun around. No one was there. He turned on the lights, checked the hallway, bedroom, bathroom, all empty. He chalked it up to exhaustion, maybe just a trick of the light. He sat back down, and that's when he realized something. His hallway light was on. He was certain he never turned it on. He never even used that switch. That's when his stomach dropped. He checked the front door, still locked. Windows, all latched. Nothing broken, nothing moved. But something didn't sit right. He had security cameras, one at the front door, one inside near the hallway. He opened the app and rewound the footage. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the hallway camera showed something that made him physically sick. A man standing just beyond the corner of the living room, partially in shadow, not moving, not blinking, just standing, watching. He was there for 13 minutes, never moved closer, never turned around, just stood silently, then walked away, walked back into the hallway, and disappeared. Here's the part that makes this story impossible to explain. Mark lives on the 3rd floor. There's only one entrance to his apartment, no attic, no crawl space, no access from the outside. and the man walked into the hallway wall. Mark rewound the footage frame by frame. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a trick. The man literally stepped into the wall and vanished. Mark called the building manager. The cops even had the apartment swept. Nothing was found. No signs of forced entry, no tampering with the cameras. The footage was real, and the man was never seen again. But now, whenever Mark watches TV late at night, he leaves the lights on, and he never watches with his back to the room. Because if that screen ever goes black again, he's not sure what he'll see or who might be standing behind him. This story comes from an actual police report filed in 2007 in a small town just outside of Sacramento, California. It involves a 14-year-old girl named Emily. She was homesick from school on a Friday. Nothing serious, just a stomach bug, so her parents let her stay home while they went to work. She spent most of the day in bed, watching daytime TV and trying to sleep off the nausea. But that afternoon, she realized someone else was in the house. Around 12:15 p.m., Emily heard footsteps, faint but distinct, moving across the upstairs hallway. At first, she thought it might be her mom coming home early, but then she remembered her mom worked an hour away. She wouldn't be home for hours. She sat up in bed, heart starting to race. The footsteps stopped. She called out, "Mom?" Silence. She slowly got up and crept toward her bedroom door. The house was dead quiet. She looked into the hallway, empty. Then another step from the direction of her parents' room. She backed up, closed her door, and locked it. Then she called her mom, whispering into the phone. Her mom answered immediately. "I'm at work. Why? What's wrong?" Emily tried to explain, but before she could finish, she heard it. A soft knock on her bedroom door. She didn't scream. She didn't speak. She just pressed the phone harder to her ear and mouthed, "Someone is in the house." Her mom told her to call 911 immediately. Emily did, whispered into the phone. The dispatcher kept her calm, kept her quiet, told her help was on the way. The knocking continued, then stopped. When the officers arrived about 6 minutes later, the house was silent again. They cleared the upstairs, then the downstairs, and that's when they found him. In the downstairs coat closet, curled into a tight ball, clutching a kitchen knife. A man in his late 30s, dirty clothes, no shoes, eyes wide and bloodshot. He didn't resist arrest. He just kept mumbling something over and over. "She saw me. She saw me. She wasn't supposed to be home." He had entered the house through the back door, a sliding glass one that Emily's parents thought was locked, but wasn't. Investigators believe he had been watching the house for at least a week, waiting for a day when the family left. He had food in his backpack, a change of clothes, zip ties. He wasn't just there to rob them. Emily never spent another day alone in that house. She slept with her bedroom door double locked for the next year. And now, even as an adult, she checks every door 3 times before going to bed. Because sometimes you don't forget what it feels like to hear footsteps when no one's supposed to be there.